Today is the 16th of October, 2023. You know, every day is World Something. It's International Something Day, it's World Something Day. Today is a special one for food. It's World Food Day. Siku ya kukula. Ya chakula.
Siku ya kufikiria chakula ama kuona chakula ama kukula. Which one?
It is not World Eating Day. It is World Food Day.
Food does not equals to eating.
No.
What does it equal?
It's not food. It's food.
It equals existence.
It equals existence.
It's existence or an absence of existence.
Exactly.
But as long as
We are discussing food.
Okay, it's food.
It's food.
All right. So.
Yes. We are joined in the studio by Hamisi Williams. He is from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. He is the Assistant Kenya Representative. Good morning, Hamisi.
Morning, Latif.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us virtually is the County Executive Committee member for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives from Kakamega County, Benjamin Andama. Benjamin, good morning.
Good morning, team. Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us all the way in Kakamega. Huko mvua iko namna gani?
Mvua iko kwa wingi. Hata saa hizi kuna mawingu, yes.
Kakamega
mvua iko kwa wingi Kakamega.
The only rainforest in Kenya is in Kakamega.
Very true.
So we can imagine how much mvua there is. We'll be having that conversation, but to welcome you both to a conversation this morning, CT has the day's proverb. This week's proverbs are from Rwanda.
The Republic of Rwanda.
Okay.
Remember that story of the question, the population that you asked, which I was doubtful about. I wasn't sure that it was 12.9 million, 13 million. It's around 13.4 million.
13.4 million.
Yes, I went and did a research.
Okay.
13.4 million. That's the population. Very many people.
And because of its landmass, it makes it a densely populated country.
Brother, that thing is very, very densely populated.
Okay.
Very densely populated.
Okay.
But there are other more densely populated places in the world. But they tend to be islands. Now for the proverb. If you call a piece of wood a child, you can never use it to light a fire, since it has become so precious.
If you call a piece of wood a child,
Yes.
you can never use it to light a fire,
Yes.
because now it becomes precious.
Yes.
I see. Let's start with you, Benjamin. What's your interpretation of this proverb?
Hello. I didn't get it. Probably, can you just repeat?
Yes, Benjamin, I can repeat. If you call a piece of wood a child, you can never use it to light a fire, since it has become so precious.
It's true. You can't, for sure. If we are really going to say that we're going to use the piece of wood to make it like the fire, that cannot be. Because for sure, you really need to really have the real fire to really make it happen.
Hamisi, what's your interpretation?
Thanks. Maybe I'm not very good at this because I'm just good at food. But let's look at it this way. Maybe something
You light a fire to make food.
something you hold dearly is you're not gonna throw it away. You're gonna keep it and you're gonna make good use of it. You're gonna protect it and also protect it jealously.
So what do you think the Rwandans are saying? Are they telling us to therefore hold pieces of firewood dear, or are they cautioning us against doing that? And why?
Maybe Moga was there. Moga could tell us this.
You know, the beauty of Proverbs is when you ask for your interpretation, you can't be wrong. Because that is your interpretation.
So I was right on my own.
You are right. You are very, very right. Both of you are actually very, very right. But remember, why the child comes in is the moment you humanize, you're talking about an inanimate object. A piece of wood is inanimate. The moment you animate it, then it acquires a different value. You only need to think, if you ask about a child, look at the way we name children. If a child is named after a father or mother, that child is treated very differently. Or a grandfather, simply because of the naming. And that's why they get the nicknames Babu, Mami. Now, when it's his own name, then it's just Toto.
Oh boy. Let's get into the conversation. Today is World Food Day. Hamisi, what does that mean? Where did this originate from?
Yeah, thank you so much. As you had indicated, maybe every day, each day is World Something Day. But for us in the food and nutrition security sector, this is a very special day for us. And just to put it into context is that I work with the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is the lead UN agency that is in charge of ensuring that we have the world without hunger and people have bread on their table. So two critical significant for this day. One is the birthday of FAO itself as an organization, as the day that FAO actually was made a special agency of the United Nations. Secondly, because of the role of the agency, the World Food Day is marked to create awareness, and I think that's something that we need to really clarify to the public. It's not like we're providing food that day, that is not the day for people to eat, but it is a day that is marked to create awareness in terms of where are we with the matters food and nutrition security, what are the challenges that we are facing, and what needs to be done to address the same. We mark it every year on 16th of October. And in Kenya, we've been doing this for the last 47 or so years that FAO has been around. Last year, we marked it at Loitoktok in Kajiado County, and this was actually presided over by the Deputy President. This year, we will be marking it in Kakamega County, and we've invited guests as well. We work together with the Ministry of Agriculture when organizing the World Food Day always. I only need to also probably say that for this year, it's being marked with a difference, Eric. That is because of the world food security trends. FAO had relooked at the whole situation differently and decided that there would be, along just celebrating on creating awareness on matters food and nutrition security, we're gonna have countries also going into some specifics, checking on what exactly would they be able to invest in that can help countries to address matters of food and nutrition security. And for that matter, today, 16th, FAO is holding a global conference in Rome that is World Investment Forum. Kenya is actually represented at a very high level in that particular forum. We worked together with the ministry to come up with specific areas of investment. We drilled down to a particular one, which we thought that maybe if we focus on this and attract investment on it, then we'll be able to address some level of food and nutrition security. So yes, it's about awareness and showing people where we are, what needs to be done so that we take next steps. Thank you.
We've been having a conversation about food security in the country for a while, with all the cycles of coming out of a prolonged drought situation, looking at our reduced yields in our farms because of various factors. Is Kenya food secure? And what would you use to gauge your answer? Starting with you, and then we'll go to Waziri in Kakamega.
Yeah, good question. Let me first give you some statistics. Just a quick one. I'll just pick a few of it, and that will really help us to, to globalize this conversation. Okay. Because what happens in Kenya affects what happens in our neighbors, and what happens there affects us as well. Yeah. So probably we need to really look at it in that manner. Some statistics say that between 2019 and 2022, we got the population that were food insecure increasing from about 690 million to about 780 million globally. And we got the severe insecurity population household numbers increasing from about 25% to 29%. That means that you added about 180 million numbers into the severe food insecure population. So why is the period 2019-2022 critical? And I actually specifically went for that, and I wanted to share that. That's because if you look at the trend from 1990 to about 2015 and thereabout, we had actually made some gains, actually reduced the world global hunger index by about 10%. But now we got a situation that is deteriorating. So the question is why, before I come to just the specifics of is Kenya food secure or not. That is the period we had the COVID-19 that disrupted, the trends, productions, and a lot of things that went wrong just with that. And I don't want to go into that story. Again, in that particular moment, you got quite a lot of little bit of rapid urbanization that is happening, and then you got a lot of competition in terms of the population. Then you had issues of climate change. We've seen a very intense kind of climate change disruptions that happen and have very serious consequences in the manner we produce food, the manner we process food, and the manner we utilize food itself. And that's, I'm talking at a disruption that has taken a systemic approach from what we call farm to fork. Yeah, so all the way you got every aspect disrupted. Now, when you have all those factors combined together, they compromise your ability to have food that is available, affordable, and quality. So these are the measures that you need to look at. And then when you look at it, then you'll say, we are in a state that is not very good. It's not very, very secure state. Within the population, you have a number that could be doing well, some whatever, but you're looking at what number lives below the $1 index, $1.25 index. That is on extreme poverty. The number that lives below 2.15 index, that is poverty. So if you look at that, and you can make your guess.
Waziri, let's come to you then. In Kakamega, and our conversation that we've been having, Kakamega is one of those counties around there that are considered to be food baskets of the country and all. How are you doing in terms of food security for the population in Kakamega?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And in this discussion, very important discussion, World Food Day, being celebrated every 16th of October every year. And I would want also to put voice, just the way my colleague William Hamisi have just talked about. As a county, we are so privileged that this year we are going to host the World Food Day celebration, the climax of it on 26th of this month, and we want to welcome everyone else in this particular undertaking. So for that reason, as a county, and since we got into government, that is since last year, within the county manifesto and the government of Fernandez Baraza, one of the key pillars is on food security. And as you just put it, Kakamega is being seen or is coming up as one of the food basket of Kenya, and I believe also for the region. There are a number of activities that we've engaged in that really look at food security as a really important aspect within our populace. So for that reason, for this financial year that's ended, and we're happy that this has happened, we've had an issue because our farmers were never using fertilizer and seed, the certified seeds and fertilizer much as expected. But as a county, through the cabinet and through the leadership of our governor, we gave out subsidized fertilizer and seeds worth over 700 million Kenya shillings. And as we are talking today, we've really improved on production from the 5-6 bags we used to get before, and now we're talking about around 15 bags per acre. And in this season, as you all know, the issue of food has been very, very much talked about here and there. And as you know, we've also come from a very severe drought. As a county, this is an area we've really worked hard in terms of maize production. And this year, we've really, I would say, we are really expecting and putting together a bumper harvest that have just come up. And this does not only happen with our county subsidized fertilizer, we also receive the government fertilizer that's also assisted a lot in terms of production. So we are really working towards making sure, for sure, Kakamega as a county is a food secure, and if possible, also if we can also have surplus.
So when we look at some of the issues concerning food, obviously, for you, Hamisi, and you talk about, working on this index, whether it was at a global stage, and we can then bring that and localize that conversation to Kenya, for example. And we talk of some of the things that are needed to be done to ensure that there's food being grown, there's food being produced, there's food being consumed, and there's food being stored to make sure that at any one time an equilibrium is maintained to then say that Kenya is food secure. Now, what are some of those activities that will ensure some of these processes that we speak of?
Thank you. Critical question. But by the way, I needed to clarify also that every year within the World Food Days, look at what is critical for that year to support this agenda and the awareness. And in particular, this year has been themed Water is Life, Water is Food, Leave No One Behind. I'm going to use that to address her question. Yeah, so what specifically this year is looking at is let's create awareness that our life is built around food. And our food is built around water. And therefore, water is life, basically. So one of the critical things to answer your question is that we're going to have to make sure that we harness water well and we use water well, because it's really a critical component of producing our food. And it's been said several times that we on this side of the world, we rely so much on, rain-fed agriculture. We still do agriculture like it's a way of life. We wake up and go to the farm when it is time. We come back, we wait for nature to take its course. This is not how to do agriculture anymore. Why? Because a lot of things have happened here. The space that you had before has reduced tremendously because of the population. So you can no longer have the laxity to just play around with the space you have. And therefore that calls for technology, that calls for new way of doing things. I look at it when I discuss the numbers and the population and the size we have. In the United States, for example, 2% of that population is the only one involved in agriculture production. And they feed over 400 million and export it. In Kenya, we are now going through a very massive farmer registration exercise, which FAO is supporting the government to do. Already we are heading to 7 million farmers that are going to be in that register. But they're not able to feed the population. So you find a trend where in the developed world, or where agriculture has taken shape properly, the farm sizes are increasing and the number of farmers are decreasing. In the situation like in Kenya, the farm sizes are decreasing and the number of farmers are increasing.
Are the farmers increasing?
Seriously. And I'll give you an example. Because the farmers, in terms of what do you want to define as a farmer? You got this mzee with 5 acres 10 years ago, got 5 sons, everyone got 1 acre each. That's about 3 years ago. All the sons went to some level of subsistence agriculture somehow in their 1 acre. The sons will give birth to 2 sons also. They will divide the 1 acre. You get the point?
Yep.
And all of them masquerade like they're doing some farming around there. And that's what you get. Yes, so some of these things.
So
also
farmers, if we define farmer as somebody who is involved in some form of agricultural activity,
farmers, yes,
then the farmers are
they're
increasing.
doing some level of production anyway.
Okay.
So, but these are smallholders.
Yeah.
So we can also go into that and see what are the merits and demerits of having them, which are also some of the things that we have. But the second thing I wanted to come to why I brought that issue are also the matters of policies, the regulations. What are the frameworks that guide us around these areas of the farm sizes, agricultural land? What are the frameworks that guide us, that tell us that we are not supposed to probably produce buildings instead of food itself? So these are things that we need to have and put in place. And then I talked about technology, and I can go on and on about that one, because to me that is very critical. We can no longer do our agriculture the way we used to do it before, 20, 30 years ago, and think that we are going to change it. Because of the decreased size, weather changes and everything, we need to go into precise technologies that will help us to produce more with less. More with less land, more with less investment, more with less labor. That's the only way we're going to increase our food, because the size of our land is basically not increasing.
It's shrinking.
Yes.
You know, for many times when people think about using technology, people think mechanization. And mechanization is often, because we are looking at now, for example, in the case of America, mechanization comes with large parcels of land. So you will have to tell us how this technology would work with reducing parcels of land, and how then we can be more efficient in farming. But let's take a break. We're having a conversation this World Food Day with 2 gentlemen. One of them is Hamisi Williams. He's in the studio. He is with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. He is Assistant Kenya Representative for the Kenya Program. Benjamin Andama is the County Executive Committee member for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives, joining us live from Kakamega, where he serves in the Kakamega County government. Keep it here. This year's commemorations are taking place in Kakamega. The theme is Water is Life, Water is Food, Leave No One Behind. Back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation. We have with us, joining us online, is Benjamin Andama, the CCM for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives in Kakamega County. Hamisi Williams is the Assistant Kenya Representative for the Food and Agriculture Organization. It's World Food Day. The theme is Water is Life, Water is Food, Leave No One Behind. City.
I'd like to ask Waziri. Waziri, would you say that the farm productivity of Kakamega County is sufficient to feed all its people?
Thank you. First, I must say that when we were starting on, there are a number of factors. Of course, you remember we had a poverty index of around 31%. And this has been reduced from 50% that was in 2013, when poverty level was very high, when actually the issue of farm, or rather the issue of farm input subsidy came into being. And as we are talking today, this has been really significant, really come down because of the way we've really embraced. And since we came into government, this was one of the things that we were moving around during our campaigns, telling and talking about how food productivity and food security is very important. And as I said before, the aspect of food productivity in Kakamega County, as we are talking today, a number of factors and a number of things have really happened that have really, to some extent, we are still on the road. We've not really gotten to our dream. And this is one of the things, if you ask me now, where as a county at some point, the population was only having food once in a day, and we used to call it in our mother tongue, savalala, meaning wash your hands once. And that really brought us very much down, and the poverty and, of course, the issues of malnutrition and the like were really seen across. But as we talk today, majority of the population or households and the small-scale farmers that we have around, the productivity are really improved, not only on maize production. This has also happened because we are now one of the counties within the country that are doing a lot of fish farming, which have really taken on, where we're really drilling a lot of fish ponds across the county. And these are really improved in terms of nutrition and, of course, providing opportunities for our youth and even for our young population. So the issue of productivity, we are really approaching it in different angles. And as I just said it, another aspect that I believe is also helping us really get to food productivity, like the increase that we're having, is the issue of extension. And this one, we must really be thankful to the FAO for the exercise that have just happened, where we've just registered our farmers across the county. We are talking of almost 300,000 farmers have been registered. This is a kind of data we didn't have to really know and even measure and know whether we are really improving or not. So this kind of data that we just received, we are now cleaning it up, which has been a very big initiative and a plan for us to know exactly who are the farmers doing crop farming, the ones who are doing fisheries, the ones who are doing dairy and the like. So with this kind of data, of course, we are still yet really cleaning and putting it up would really help us to know exact numbers and exact movement in terms of our productivity.
Waziri, you mentioned something very interesting and talking about the fact that people look at productivity, and you've actually been able to see going into other sources of production that were not necessarily traditional. We're looking at the country at large being heavily maize dependent, and the conversation has often come up at looking at alternate sources of sustenance. Would this be an avenue through which new or I guess non-ordinary sources of food then can come into the conversation for production that could then provide a source of food for people around the country? If you see that it works with fish farming, that was not necessarily something that was traditional to a certain people, can you then look at other sources so that at times when a source like maize is depressed, that there's something else to lean on? Is there space for that kind of conversation today?
Yeah, I think that's really important because as it is now, if you look at culturally here in Kakamega, and basically this is almost becoming a national thing, where maize or rather ugali is becoming like, if you don't feed on it, it's like you've not fed on anything. So I think to me, even the change of mind and the way we look at food, it's time now, even with the kind of changes and the climate change that we even have today, we need to look at other alternative sources and ways that we can really produce food. And as I just said it before, the issue of food, fish production, this wasn't really a thing that even was happening within us. We are really looking at fish coming from the lakes and from the ocean and the like. But now Kakamega County is really taking fish farming as one of real thing that's really happening across. And for information, even in the last 2-3 months, Kakamega was considered as an area where fish production is really getting on and really almost surpassing really even some of the fish farming that's happening within the lakes. So for us, that's an alternative. However, we're also looking at ways on how we can really look at our traditional food that we used to even to grow in the early 90s or even the 80s. For example, the issue of cassava and potatoes. And looking at that because it's just a way of how we look at food. So to me, as we are even celebrating the World Food Day now, we're looking at alternative food and that's what can really be put on the table as opposed to really over-dependence on maize and looking at maize as the only food. For us here, yes, it is. But however, I think it's a mindset, and this is one thing I believe we can really take to higher levels and even share across and look at it also in different forms. For us, in our CIDP for this financial year, we're looking at how can we promote sweet potatoes and cassava within our catchment areas.
If I may ask, this is to you, sir. There's always this conversation we hear from food experts and people who work for international organizations such as the one you work for about this overdependence on maize. But that narrative isn't entirely true. Because traditionally, literally every community in this country had a diversity of foods. If you're talking about starches, they had them. So are we talking about having lost ground to something that we previously had? Or we are saying that farming ceased to be what it was because subsistence farming in this country for the longest time meant the farmer could feed himself and his family.
Yep.
So are we saying that that is no longer the case, that they can't feed? I know, because anyone who grew up in the area that I grew up in the rural areas predominantly. And farming was just the way of life. And the truth of the matter was, those subsistence farmers traditionally even understood crop rotation. They knew what to plant, when and how. All these things we talk about as though it is being reinvented existed. So, as they ask in modern terminology, where was the plot lost?
Okay, good. Maybe I'll combine that with what you said earlier before we went to the break about technology and mechanization. And let's say that maize, when it was introduced, there were good intentions. This was a much palatable crop. It was growing faster. 3 months you had your harvest. And I think because of palatability, if you grew up in the village, people actually moved from things like sorghum and started consuming maize. It was a good crop because you could use it for breakfast, you use it for lunch, you use it for whatever. These were some of the advantages. Actually, the advantages of maize are so many. Except that it comes also with a lot of other things like demand on water to grow maize. So this is why we talk of, let's get crops that are water resistant, a bit of drought tolerant, kind of, which were there before. An unfortunate situation, Muga, is that we now had maize, but that's also when climate change also started beating us. So our maybe water reliance levels were becoming a bit shaky, especially of the natural rainfed. And then this crop requires a lot of it, for instance. So the little failure or depressed rains, then you start having challenges with your harvest. And that's why there is all this conversation. Like, either we get the varieties, and actually I agree with you, probably we do not need to concentrate so much in changing maize. But we could also make the best out of that situation. There are technologies that do that. Countries have really survived on the same. A country has to really determine what is my staple food and has to deal with the staple food. But as we do that, we also say we need what we call a crop master plan that will be able to tell us, in this area, this is what you need. In this area, this is what can grow. In this area, under the circumstances, including look at the soils themselves. Livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture, actually, livestock is now undergoing through the same process. They are coming up with what you call livestock master plan, and we are working together with them so that we know what type of livestock breed do you keep where. This will help a great deal. So that's something that we need to look into. It's not like we need a change 360 degrees something. We can make the best out of it. And I want to use that now to address your issue of mechanization and technology. And what exactly is this? And does it mean we need the big machines and everything else? You know, let me state here clearly that there's nothing wrong with smallholder farming. Nothing. It's what you have and it is what it is. But we can do something about it. We can make it better. How do we do that? We must innovate. When you know you have a challenge, you must innovate. You know, so we look at technologies, even machines themselves. There are those machines that can work in a 1 acre to half an acre, depending what crop are you growing there. There are systems of irrigation that can be used even in the kitchen gardens and be able to produce vegetables. There are those ways and technologies through which we can dry vegetables and make them last longer, even for export. So there are so many technologies that we can be able to use and apply. And it doesn't mean we have to do the big machineries of 100 acres and so. If we don't have it, we can make the best of what we have. And the good news, just 1 minute, the good news is that these technologies are available. For instance, you're asking for examples, and I'll give you a few. The greenhouse technology is here with us. You walk to some of these areas here around Kitengela, you'll find that working big time. And those are very dry areas. You use less water. The drip irrigation. I was walking some areas around Kajiado there, and you find people have done maize under drip irrigation. Yes. So the only challenge probably that comes there will be, what is the investment that is required, the initial investment? And I have to also talk about that. And this is where also, back to the policies that we have. How do we bring in the agriculture equipments and materials that are required in this country? How do we encourage the domestic production of those equipments and materials that are required, maybe drip lines and things like that? Are we able to produce them here so that we don't rely on imports?
Yeah.
So that then the farmers can get them. If we talk of just one more minute, if we talk about water, like today we talk of water. There is something as simple as water harvesting. Go to your rural place now, every typical rural village, you'll find some kamabati structure somewhere. But that mabati structure lacks the gutter. It lacks the tank. If that person got the gutter and got the tank, they would do some kitchen garden somewhere. This is the level we can go. But do you know why they can't do it? Try to buy the gutter today. One is 1,800 shillings. A Kenyan living under $1.5 US dollars is not able to do this. They will be looking at something else to do with that money. So those roofs are there. They are not harvesting water at all. And so when it rains, that water goes off. Just like that. And we lose there.
So we just have very many losses. I want to ask you again about the policy, because you said, it's our policies that we have in place and all. We have a food and nutrition security policy. Just, was it a year or 2 years ago, the Ministry of Agriculture launched, and I'm sure the FAO was involved in this, in the agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy.
Yep.
Are you saying all those things don't contain what we're talking about? If they do, then why aren't we seeing a change and a shift?
They do. And they have all this. I actually was involved even in the SDGs itself, in the initiation.
So on paper, we have everything we're talking about is on paper. Is it in practice?
That's what you are saying, and that's not what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is we already have aligned this. There's always, you have to start from somewhere. And actually the ministry just launched the SDGs you're talking about 2 years ago. You're going to have to take time. This is a 10-year strategy for you to start seeing it rolling.
Right.
One of the things they're doing now, like including the farmer registration, it is looking and focusing on the smallholder, is actually coming from that particular document. And for the first time, Kenya has become bold enough to say, we must register every farmer. That's where you start when you want to deal with these farmers, to know who is farming and farming what, where. You get the point? That is actually coming from that strategy itself.
I want to understand why 10 years.
Is it 10 years to realize the results, or 10 years to start implementing?
No, 10 years you look at it to, you progress the implementation. So that's why it goes 10 years. And it will also mean, after 10 years, you'll have also another kind of, things will have changed also. So you're going to have to relook at your strategy again. And that's why policies really are always dynamic. They can't be static. So they keep on changing. That's why it's a 5-year, 4 years, 10 years, or whatever it is. For instance, in agriculture sector, you can't have maybe a vision of a year. That will require really at a very basic level.
Yeah, but why not?
If you want to look at the national strategy, you want to have them at different levels, because there are things you can implement within a month and get your results. There are things you will do within a year. There are things you'll do within 5 years and 10 years as you go. So you're going to have to take care of both, all of them. And that's what I was saying. For instance, in that particular policy, there are actually 9 thematic areas in that policy, flagships in that policy itself. And started with the immediate ones, the low-hanging fruits, like, first of all, let's know who is our farmer in this country. And that's already being rolled out by the government. Yeah, it's working. We're supporting that together with the World Bank.
Can I ask Waziri a question here? And this is one of the things that we speak about, water, right? Because I think that's premised around what we speak of today. We've come out, Kenya, and maybe still dealing with the last bits of a very, very severe drought. And we know that following severe drought will come severe rains. It's just the cycle and how it works. Maybe we've seen the onset of this now. And when we then talk about the preservation of water, I can understand policies are necessary to have some of these things done. But what kinds of things are we looking at? Because if we're talking about water harvesting, for example, at a national level, I don't know that anything has been done to make sure that folks that we're speaking about who cannot afford a gutter of 1,800 shillings, then maybe would be able to afford it. So if you look at the smallholder farmer, what can be done or what is being done, if you even take Kakamega County as an example, to make sure that water harvesting at that level becomes something that is a practice as a result of policy?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I agree with my colleague from the FAO, but for us as a county, the issue of water, and as you just put it, and of course, we have homes with those gutters here and there, but some cannot really afford it. And even if they have a gutter, they might not have the tank to really store even the very water. So if we really look at our county generally, the issue of water harvesting, and probably even looking at alternative ways of water conservation, and as it is for now, majority of our farmers are waiting for the rains or rain-fed as a real main area of our production. And if for sure we are really to really look at this in a best way possible as a county, because most of our farmers are subsistence farmers with not very big land as such. Of course, we have some sub-counties that has bigger land, but majority of our sub-counties have smaller pieces of land. So the issue of water conservation and really looking at that and looking at the farmers, to me, I'm looking at this as a very important aspect. And of course, these are some of the challenges and ways we are looking ahead as a county on how we can really conserve the water, because there's a lot of water running, especially now that it's raining. And probably we're looking at our irrigation department in terms of even having the water pans here and there, so that in one way or the other, when there's no rain at all, we can still utilize the same water for our irrigation. However, one thing we're also looking at is the question of the issue of climate change and how we can really look at the issue of drought and how we can really conserve our water when it's really with us and see how best we can really do the same. We are looking at even some kind of crops or plants that don't really need a lot of water for that matter, as opposed to the plants that really need a lot of water across the year that can really still provide food security for our county.
But then, Waziri, so are you supporting all the homeowners in water harvesting? I guess that's more directly what Ndu is asking. What are you doing as a county to make sure that all the rain that is raining now is not going to waste?
Thanks for that question. We are not really, it's not really sort of as it is, but I think what major thing we are doing, we are just creating awareness. And we are hoping through awareness and through our public baraza and the like, just letting them know the importance and why it is important to really do the water conservation. But I believe even as a county, this is an area we need to really invest more in terms of, I would say, public awareness and making sure that we really know why, because this is something that is with us. And the question is how we really need to really do that in the long run. For now, we are not really supporting directly.
From my understanding, agriculture is a devolved function. There's a simple way of conserving water through water pans. Simple. It's something that all you need is equipment to sort of like dig the earth and make sure that water heads in that direction. As you go with sensitization, perhaps you could look into community activities that could help put these things, because with these rains, that would be a great help.
Sure.
All right, Waziri, as we conclude the conversation, the World Food Day commemorations are being hosted by Kakamega County this year. What are you doing?
Thank you so much. We are out there doing the whole we can with the water, with the World Food Day coming to Kakamega.
Yep.
And this is coming up, and we are working with the community at large. We are inviting everyone else to really join us on the 26th of October. And this is going to happen in Buhungu. Buhungu, not Buhungu really, but at Bukura ATC.
Yep.
And we are inviting everybody across the region. So we put plans in place whereby we're expecting the head of state, that is the president, to really grace the occasion.
He's in
and
China.
we're looking at the... Pardon?
He's in China.
Yeah, but that's happening on 26th.
Okay, he'll be back.
We are having the real day on 26th. That's been pushed 26th. It's not happening, of course, 2016 today. It's happening elsewhere. But for us, it's happening on 26th of this month. And we're expecting the president and the entire partners. And, of course, our governor is really out in preparations. And we are looking forward to host the whole nation here in Kakamega.
Waziri, thank you very much for joining us. Waziri Benjamin Andama, CECM for Agriculture in Kakamega County. And Hamisi Williams from the Food and Agriculture Organization is the Assistant Kenya representative for our program commemorating World Food Day. Hamisi, thank you for joining us. Come again soon.
Thank you and welcome.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour in the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.